Welcome to the Gnarly Girls podcast.
What's up, gnarly beings?
This is a loose-lipped, unfiltered, raw-dogging, stripping down of culture.
No fucks, no panties. This is a labia of love.
We're your hosts, Tony Naj
and Serafina Supernova. And this is Gnarly Girls.
What's up, Sarah?
What's up, Tony?
Today we're going to talk about friendship, and we're going to be honest with y'all. This is the fourth time we are recording the same podcast, trying to have a conversation about friendship that we feel does friendship justice.
I think it speaks to the way that we really take friendship very seriously, because we have recorded this 4 times since in the last week, in the last 7 days. And if you're watching on YouTube, the hands on my face is how I feel. But I was the one who instigated this 4th recording. So
the other thing that's so wild is that we've also had just personal one-on-one conversations with friendship, probably like 6 hours worth, because Sarah has broken her toe. And which is very sad for her. I'm super bummed for Sarah's broken toe. However, for me personally, having access to call Sarah anytime I want, because she's home now way more than usual, I've been taking advantage of it. So we've been living our lives on the phone for the past week and a half as well.
We also do this though, where sometimes we'll just be on the phone and it's silent, even prior to the broken toe. We're just,
you know what?
Parallel living in silence on the phone.
I used to, I don't know if, well, you're a different generation, but for me, the generation of TV is on at a certain time, and that's it. That's when you get to watch TV. I used to talk on the phone with my friends while we watched Beverly Hills 90210. So we would be completely silent on the phone watching the show, and then during the commercials, we would talk.
Ah, that's so cute.
That was how I spent. This is just reminding me, I spent my entire childhood on the phone.
I spent a lot of time on the phone.
Constantly.
Yeah.
I do think Gen Z is missing that.
Yeah, because they also, my Gen Z brother will voice note me back. But I think I have instigated a lot of Gen Zs into the voice note train.
That's not the same thing as being on the phone. I truly would be on the phone from 4 p.m. until 10 p.m. for a huge portion of my life. I would call friends. And I did not realize that, but a lot of my relationships now are still on the phone because a lot of my besties don't live close to me.
Yeah. No, the phone is an important part of female friendship. Should we just go right in and we're already kind of in this realm of our friendship being on the phone in silence together, the way that you're benefiting from my broken toe. Let's just bring the people in. How has our friendship impacted you, changed you? Talk to the people about our friendship, just to make it about me.
I love making it about you. So I think the thing about my friendship with Sarah and my friendship with people in general is that the way I approach friendship is really coming from a place of a desperate desire to not feel so alone in the world, right? And I think that comes from a family imprint of being very lonely as a child growing up. When I was little, my older brother, I was a little sister. My older brother was my world. I didn't have any friends. I just had him. And my parents weren't facilitating for me to have friends. It wasn't on their consciousness, oh, we should make sure our daughter has friends. They didn't fucking care. So I just had my brother. And then eventually when we moved and my brother and I, the geography of the house changed and we were more separated from a geographic standpoint. We had our own bathrooms now. He was older. He was 9. I was 6. He started to kind of get into his own world. I felt so just untethered without him that I had to start making friends. And I think I really looked for friends to fill the loneliness of like wanting attention from my parents that I wasn't getting, wanting attention from my brother that I wasn't getting, and just feeling so untethered, feeling like truly desperately alone in the cosmos. And that when I was with a friend and when I was falling in love with friends, I suddenly felt like, oh, it's us. It's us against the world, or it's us within this world. And now I'm not, like, I was so lonely as a kid. I would call the operator to make sure someone else was still alive, because I had this like primal fear that everyone was dead but me, because I would be left alone a lot in the house. And I would be like, oh my God, everyone's dead. I have to like call the operator, and she would answer. And I would just be like, oh, I just wanted to make sure someone else was. It was like a Twilight Zone trauma that I had from a Twilight Zone that I saw. But that's how fucking lonely I was. So meeting Sarah, I immediately felt like the deepest connection. Really like clear that there was like something like primal in our dynamic. But also because Sarah's younger than me, I also felt like severely protective from this, like the first hour. You know, I was like, I will protect her, because I also see my younger self in you. We have so many like similar imprints. So long story very long, I felt connected to you, like I was less alone. I felt like understood, seen. I felt like I was in that vortex of like love that is just like nothing else matters. We're in love. We're in love. And then also wanting to make sure that like I was I was caring for you and nothing would ever harm you again.
The way you immediately showed up for me, like off the bat, off the conveyor belt of God, just like coming right in with well, the first thing, well, okay, so we met at a festival that you were performing at, and I had been your fan, which is also an interesting dynamic. Like, I had been a fan of your work on social media. I don't know if people know that, that I had found Tony's work like maybe in 2019, 2020 era. And I was like, who is this bad bitch talking about corporations and the billionaires and breaking it down? I think especially at a time when people were really scared to open their mouths and say what it was that they thought. Like, you were just like going balls to the wall, like, this is what I think, this is what I know, I'm gonna lay it down. And I felt so spiritually connected to the way that you were processing and digesting what was happening in the world. So then I saw you at this festival. We were both wearing leopard. And I was like, I gotta know this woman in the flesh. I wouldn't say I'm not friendly, but I also wouldn't say like one of my top qualities is that I'm very friendly. I'm a codependent, so I can present as such, but I'm not really trying to socialize in public spaces. Making new friends is complicated for my trauma. But something in me, especially at that time, I was deep in my Saturn return, so I was just a shell of myself. I was like, I must know this woman in the flesh. I must let her know I am her fangirl. We are both wearing leopard. This is a message from the goddess. So we connect. Then we're like in a parasocial, I guess parasocial isn't the correct word. We're in like a social media connection for that next year. You start to notice my work. I start to notice you commenting. And then Tony comes back.
Wait, I'm sorry. Can I just interrupt you super quick? I'm so sorry. So when I met Sarah, Sarah had this like really long, beautiful hair. Like it was like down to her waist. And I was like, oh, I love this hair. It was like so, I mean, I love a long hair, you know? And then Sarah at one point cut her hair during that year. And I was like, oh, she cut her hair, you know? And I was like, well, she still looks really cute. She looks really cute. It's a cute cut. But I remember just like being really invested in you cutting your hair. Did not know you at all. Did not know you very well. We wanted to hang, but it was like we lived 5 hours apart. So neither of us was like, okay, let's make a 5 hour investment. But I remember being highly invested in your hair.
That I also think there's something interesting happening where Tony and I are the same soul or something, and we got split. I don't know. We twin in a really freaky, deaky way on like almost a daily basis. So you probably felt like when I cut my hair, I cut your hair. Not in a codependent way, in a cosmic way. And there is a difference. I also didn't have a car at that time. I mean, that was like truly the most tragic part of my Saturn return. So then Tony comes back the next year. I was invited to perform. And then we're hanging out for the first time as
Wait,
friends.
one more thing. I got to interrupt you again. I wanted to stay with Sarah because I did not want to sleep at this fucking festival. Okay. I don't sleep at festivals. All right. I'm a grown ass woman. I'm not sleeping at no festival. I did it the year before. It was a fucking nightmare for me. Like people were literally singing Kumbaya at 4 in the morning. I've never hated an experience more than people singing next to my tent at 4 in the morning. I was also super sick and I was still performing because Capricorn. So I was like coughing, which also was an act of social terrorism. I was coughing, tents were around, people singing. I was like, I hate this. So when I was going back to the festival, Sarah lived there. I wanted to stay with her. And I kept being like, so are you going to the festival? And she'd be like, yeah, I don't know. Like the wind blows, you know? And I'd be like, cool. Like the only reason why I'm doing this festival is to hang out with you. And she just thought I was like being hyperbolic and just like being like a girl that just like says like outlandish things. And she was like, yes, hanging out with everyone is a gift from the goddess. And I was like, no, no, no. The only reason why I'm going is to see you. Are you going to be there? Like, she just would not answer me so that I had to just go like praying that this person would let me stay with her so I didn't have to stay in a fucking tent at a goddamn festival as an elder millennial.
Context. I was living on our friend's land. My husband and I were living on our friend's land in a yurt that was a 1-room yurt. And like they did have someone else's tiny home on the land, but I was still like really learning how to ask for what I wanted, what I needed. I was in a vortex without.
Wait, you keep explaining. I gotta poo, but let's just I can hear you while I poo. So you keep talking. I'll be right back.
This is important.
We don't have to edit this, okay? It'll be
No,
it's
no. I will say before we went to record this 4th version of this episode this morning. No, go shit. I will just yeah, you go do your thing. This is also how we do meetings. We'll be like sitting on the computer and then one of us is like, we have to shit. Let's just take a break. Because honestly, the amount of things that we're like applying for, writing, it brings up nervous feelings in the stomach. So it is important. Shitting is an important part of female friendship. It is activism and it is actively divesting from the patriarchy. So I was living in this yurt. I was living on my friend's land. I was in a vortex of my own healing. Tony comes. She does end up staying in the tiny house. We do end up hanging out. Now, I will also say this was only my 2nd time performing after taking about a 7-year performance break. So it was like really a tender, and it felt like high stakes for me emotionally. Not like the situation was high stakes, but it felt high stakes in my nervous system because I had really ditched performance and dance and was like, I did that. And now I do other things. Now I am a photographer and a coach and a somatic practitioner and a community member, but I am not a dancer or a performer. So it felt pretty iconic that one of the performers that I've, really looked up to and celebrated their work for years was watching me perform for not the 2nd time in a long time. So
I'm back, by the way.
Tony's back. So it was intense. This person also asked me to perform with them last minute, which I was super down to do. Another woman. She slut shamed me in terms of how I dance, how I move, what I was wearing in front of Tony. I kind of like noticed that it happened, but I'm so used to other women doing this thing to me, which is like finding me interesting, wanting to use me for their benefit, but then wanting to mold me in a way that fits their personal brand versus like who it is that I actually am as a person, which obviously directly intersects with my codependency trauma of being raised by a female narcissist. So Tony notices this happening and she calls it out. And I do think like this is where the age dynamic also comes in because it was very big sister. You were kind of like, do you know that your friend just slut shamed you? I actually think you asked me, you were like, did your friend just slut shame you to your face?
Yeah.
And I was like, I think that did just happen. And then,
I'm sorry to interrupt you again. It's like she also really got in your head and was like messing with your self-esteem. Like that was the other thing I really noticed was that you started to doubt all sorts of things and you were all you were already performing and needed your confidence. Anyone that like knows a human being could understand that confidence is an important part of exposing yourself. So not only did your friend slut shame you, but I also saw the impact on your perception of self. And you kept trying to change your clothes because she told you you had to.
Yeah.
And I think you were maybe microdosing. There might have been like something else that was like getting you super in your head. And I kept being like, no, you're not changing your fucking clothes. You look amazing. You're not changing your goddamn clothes for anyone. I was like, should I? Like 3 times.
Yeah, no, you were correct about it. The other thing that also happened is there was like a male energy in the space that was sort of directorial, if you will, a producer, a director of the situation. And he fucked up the timing. And I was supposed to teach a workshop at a certain time, and I got there like an hour before I was supposed to teach, but he was confused and then yelled at me in front of a bunch of people saying that I was late. He also wasn't paying me to teach this workshop. So that is also, I mean, when I tell you my Saturn return was like just activation after activation of my
Acting like he was doing you a favor
I'm
by
like,
letting you teach and letting you perform.
and then I was distraught, and my actually one of the first ways I like revealed my vulnerability to Tony was like, I feel so shooketh that this man just yelled at me for something that I actually didn't do, and he is wrong, but like it doesn't even feel like this is the moment for me to confront that because he's like on one, so I'm just gonna not. But can you actually just teach first, and then can I teach? And so like from the bat, I feel like the universe had us arranged in this way where it was like, y'all are going to be in situations together where people are acting out of pocket
Mm.
and you're going to have to like show up for each other. So it was like a part of the original paradigm. And I think even before we became friends, just being these like two people in the world who are definitely marching to the beat of their own drum, when two people and especially two women like that come together, any dark energy entity, people's own shadow shit, lack of self-awareness, narcissism in the space, I think immediately gets like attracted to that light and that power because it is a threat. And I do think I've experienced us together many times being a threat to some dark shit. So, yeah, it wasn't our inception of our friendship was not casual. It was incredibly cosmic. It was incredibly deep. It was like falling in love. And then the next day, you were like, let's talk about your work.
Wait. No.
Oh,
So many things I feel like happened. I also want to rewind for a second. The very first time I met Sarah the year before, when she came and introduced herself to me as a quote unquote fan, this was the beginning of people recognizing me, just so you know. Like that had just started for me recently. And I was like, oh, like still kind of getting used to the idea of like someone recognizing me. Like that was like, what is happening? That wasn't like, oh yeah, cool. But we were on the dance floor and I was dancing and then you were dancing, and that it's interesting. Like dancing really does say a lot about a person's energy and like whether or not you can dance with them, whether they're paying attention, whether they're not paying attention. Like, are they feeling free in their body? Are they not? Are they like all of these? There was a embodied relationship that happened because we were on the dance floor. So I couldn't hear you that great. It's not like we had this like deep conversation. I just felt your energy while we were dancing. And then we were all dancing in a group. I did not know anyone at this festival. Keep in mind, I am not a festival girly. I don't like groups of people. I don't like having to prove myself. I don't like people being friends around me and then me being like, who am I supposed to talk to? I don't like it. If I'm not the center of attention, I'm not interested. I want to be alone, listening to a podcast or reading a book. I'm just like, this is just who I am. So me being at a festival was really not my vibe. But I was like kind of dancing with this group of girls and Sarah was there and I didn't know her name. I didn't like, but I was like, oh, I really like this energy. It reminded me of an energy of like deep sisterhood. I don't have a sister. It's a craving. It's a craving to have like close girls. So then there was like some fire ceremony. Fucking Sarah disappears with her dumb dog. No offense to your dog. But you're like, I gotta go do something with my dog. And I was like, your dog? Like, fuck your
So I
dog.
did have the dog on the waist leash.
You did. You were tethered. You were fucking tethered. And goddess bless a dog, okay? But I was like perplexed. I was like, okay, this bitch disappeared. Never came to the fire. I'm like, the whole time I'm like at this fire, I'm like, where is this girl? I want to get to know her. I want to know what's up. What's happening? Never came. With her fucking dog. And I was like, okay. And then I had to ask other people, who was the girl with the long hair and the goddamn dog, you know? I messaged you. This fucking bitch does not write me back for weeks. All right. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, she came up to me. I didn't come up to her. Turns out, like, she doesn't like check her DMs that much. Like, whatever the fuck, I accept. But in the moment, I almost like wrote her again. I was like, what the actual fuck? Are we friends or what? Like, I was like heated because I think I knew the future. I was like, oh no, this is the future. And like, as Sarah and I have like analyzed it, she was not ready for what I was like about to throw down. She needed a year. She needed to go through her Saturn return until we like. So then, I know I'm talking a lot, sorry. But then the night of the second festival, after she had that interaction with the producer dude, who was like, did come out of his pocket, was fucking rude, also shook her self-esteem. Like, this was the thing that I kept noticing. I'm like, oh, these are people, these are outside forces shaking this person's self-esteem who like is a divine being of light. You know, I'm like, I hated watching it, but I was watching me too. It's like, I've seen it in myself. So there was this like mirroring too, because I'm like, I know exactly what she felt like. I knew I could so relate. And then I was like, yeah, of course I'll teach the workshop. And I wanted the workshop to like build her up. So when she taught her workshop, she was feeling really good. Like, I do think I was like really down to energetically be like, let's enliven, let's lift each other up. So then when it was time for me to perform, they were going to put me to perform during a woman's what is it? It was a woman's pit where you get into the fire. What is it? Sweat. They were like, oh, Tony, you're going to perform while the women are sweating. And I was like, and I literally said, I will not perform my feminist comedy while there are missing women. I just kept saying missing women. I'm like, there will be missing women. I refuse. And I am not a diva. Okay, you've met me enough to know I am not a diva, but I was like, I actually refuse to perform at this time slot that you've given me because there will be missing women. Okay. So then they had to rearrange everything to give me a different time to perform. So I'm like this was the most diva thing I'd ever done in my life. So I performed later in the night. And then when it was time for Sarah to perform, the producer was not honoring Sarah's performance. She basically had to he was like, okay, everyone now go to the fire. Everyone now go to the fire. And Sarah was like, no, before you go to the fire, I'm going to do this performance that I've been planning. And then everyone was like, wait, what? What's happening? Like, Sarah's like yelling out into the cosmos. Okay, if there is anything as an artist I understand, it is yelling out into the cosmos. Hey, everyone, I have something to offer. Does anyone want to see what I have to offer? Like, I was like, what the fuck? I was filled with rage. Then Sarah does the best dance performance I'd ever seen in my life. And I'm not just like saying that. I'm not just saying that because she's my friend now. I said it to her then because what she did is she did this dance that was to spoken word about this woman talking about, and you can like put in the show notes what it is. Put it in the show notes because you do stuff like that. It was this woman talking about like the quote unquote divine feminine, but it was really about the feral feminine. And like someone doing spoken word over music about like the feral feminine, you could be like, oh, that's corny. This was not fucking corny. It was profound. And then Sarah was doing this dance on the wet grass, where it was like you were observing someone fuck the goddess within them. But not for your pleasure, not for your titillation, but for you to be able to witness what ecstatic pleasure of source looks like. Like, it was not just like, oh, cool. a dance performance with a split. Like there it was primal, and the wet grass and the sliding and the slipping, and she just was like throwing herself. You could tell like this, there was no filter between her and the channel, right? And then you're watching someone channel, and then in the meantime, you have the meditation of this spell of this woman talking about feral femininity. It was mind blowing, okay? Mind blowing. Then everyone's like, let's go to the fire. And then I'm witnessing Sarah's friends or community or whatever, and they were like, great job, Sarah. But then they were also just like bringing the conversation back to themselves. And that was another thing I was like noticing, because again, see it in myself. All of these friendships I had that are so oriented around the other person because they don't know how, or I'm going to take responsibility. I don't know how to always orient conversations around myself. Hence why I'm a stand-up comic. Hence why I have the fucking internet, because I'm like, okay, cool. I can finally have a one-way fucking conversation, because no conversations I'm in except for this one in this current moment where obviously I am fucking high on caffeine and, a little bit of other stuff, No, I'm not even high on anything other stuff. I'm high on angel dust of the angels. But
Does that mean
caffeine? Long story. No, like I only had a cup of coffee. But what I'm trying to say is I got to witness again a dynamic that I experienced. It's just not being the priority. And she just like truly revealed her soul. And she wasn't the priority in the conversation she was in. And that was when I was like, Sarah, we're going to actually talk about your piece and what you did for the next 2 hours. And that is what we did. We went to a fire pit. We talked about what she did and where it came from and all that stuff. We talked about her for 2 hours so I could hear about her art and she could fucking process it and be praised. The amount of praise. And when you perform and you give yourself, like, I'm sorry, like to not be praised or acknowledged, especially when you give like a dope ass, like fucking thing like that. So I also felt like even though technically I was like giving to you, I was giving to me because I was being the friend that I want for me to you. And then you are the friend that I want for me. You are that to me as well, like, so it's not that Sarah doesn't also give that. It just like wasn't the day for it. She does that for me the next day. You get what I'm saying?
I am so touched. I am so grateful. There are so many things that I want to say, so I'm going to ask the goddess what feels the most important. So I want to say a little bit something more specific about that actual day, but what I also want to drop here as a theme is the way that we deserve friends who mirror back to us the ways that we don't understand it's possible to be loved.
Yeah.
You've loved me in a way I didn't understand it was possible because it directly intersects with my primal wounds. And I think something that I've learned in my adult womanhood is it's really important for me to have friends who can see what I need when I don't know what I need, because I also have the gift of seeing what people need when they don't know what they need. And
Mm.
this to me feels like that split between codependency and like cosmic partnership, because I think there also is this demonization of like, what we would call codependency as well, because a close-knit bond where people are actually deeply supporting each other at like the root level of their pain is threatening to a system that profits off of us feeling like we don't belong.
Mm-hmm.
And I have become more of a threat to systems of oppression through our relationship because you saw me. You saw me so many times that night. My hair was blown back. And I didn't tell you that the intention for my burlesque, because I was very early in my journey at that point, that my intention for my burlesque, based on my orientation and who I am as an artist, was to let it be a public self-initiation ritual that other people are getting to witness, that it's not about me performing for them. Not that I have an issue with that, and I think that kind of art can be beautiful, but for me and my own thesis and my own process and what feels important to share is that it is something that I have channeled, and it's about my spiritual relationship with source that I am then choosing to share, not I am putting this on for you. And anytime I have forgotten that, I do end up injuring myself, pushing it too hard, going too far. And it is a lesson I haven't learned, but I am learning. Um,
And you know what else I'm just thinking of, like about your community and your coven? Because when we did Grape Culture in New York, we had our off Broadway run. um, Sarah had a lot of friends come to the show. And for me, my friends don't really come to my shows. Some of them do. Some of them do. I have some ride or die friends that will come to my shows. But I think like because I do perform more, my friends are not who are filling the room for me. Absolutely not. You know, it really is strangers. And less friends come to my shows, the more shows I have, right? So when we did Grape Culture in New York, I got to witness Sarah's coven, like her like ride or dies that were going to make the effort to come to New York to like do all the negotiating with partners and children and yada, yada, yada in order to be there. And the thing that like really made me happy and really I think shows me the depth of like our bond is how happy I am for you. But Sarah had this like crew of girls where we have so many props that we have for the show, and it's very messy at the end of the show, and like it takes a lot of cleanup in order to get out of the theater on time to be like respectful. And Sarah's girls, like I like literally blinked and they cleaned the entire stage for us. It was so kind. And the joy I felt for Sarah, and I think this is where like compersion is like part of the poly world, but I really fuck with it as an idea because as a friend, we have to have compersion because I have to want Sarah to have like not just me as her friend. I have to want her to have infinite friends, you know? Like her having other friends is not a threat to me. It does not like take away from our bond. So when I the compersion I felt that like, holy shit, like these girls just fucking showed the fuck up, did this for her and me. You like through transitive property, they were looking out for me because I would have done it had they not, you know? So they had the concept of compersion as well. And I think that is what a genuine coven is. That is what genuine, when you're in like genuine female friendship, it is, and compersion, just to define it for those that don't know, it's like you feel genuine happiness, genuine joy from someone else's happiness and joy. So something great happening to another person fills you with the same joy as if it were to happen to you. And not everyone has compersion. Like, I think you have to have compersion to be poly, but I also think it really helps to be in a coven and just want the best for your friends. And I think that if we're going to talk about the macro and the micro, the competitive nature of female friendships is rooted in capitalism, is rooted in patriarchy, is rooted in women feeling as if they are property of men. Even though, of course, for the last like whatever 50 years, that's not the case. It doesn't matter. It's like it's embedded in our DNA and our cellular structure that men are our sense of security. So when women are competitive with each other, it's ultimately around security and safety because of patriarchy. But really, women in a group is safer. Like if we were being totally rational, groups of women is the safest you'll ever be. You're not gonna, if the women have compersion, and that's why it's such a threat to society. That's why society is always telling you, oh, female friendships are so fucking are so toxic. And I've said it. I've experienced lots of fucking heartbreak and toxicity within a female friendship. That stereotype doesn't come from nothing. It comes from real life experiences. But those real life experiences are rooted in females or women believing they have to prioritize the male relationship for security rather than understanding that it is in group, it in community, in coven that we are actually safe.
And something you're making me like just feel into is like, can female friendships, and are they actually supposed to, like in the same way that source can come in and like fill these holes within us that are meant to be filled by like the light of goddess, can also maybe what if, and this is to anyone with like a romantic partner or partners. Can we let our friendships also occupy more of maybe what we're looking for in romantic dynamics? And has the patriarchy programmed us in a way where we think that the most intimate you can be is in a sexual exchange, especially for survivors of abuse, especially if that was like an early imprint? Like, is there a way that friendship can come in and meet that? And just from my own experience, I call you my art wife all the time. And for to just disappoint everyone out there, Tony and I, we don't fuck and we never will. But on the quantum level, we do. And it's not like our dynamic is romantic, but there's like words that don't exist for it where it's like, and I feel this with those women also who showed the fuck up and cleaned those props up. It's like, women need wives. We need wives. Like, we're not going to just, and especially women in hetero relationships, like, I'm so sorry, but I have yet to see a man who's really like showing up at like, I don't think we can wait around for men to go through their necessary spiritual evolution in order to like satisfy us. I think it's actually our job to create connections that satiate us so that men can actually have the space to like heal and rise as a collective. And maybe there's a part of my feminine that's like, you know, you want the brothers and like the male friends and the male partners to like really ride for you. But time and time again, what has like held me in that space of like, I truly actually can't believe that this level of disrespect is happening to my face. Like, I am beside myself. I also had a man last night at a concert look at a plastic bag I had wrapped around my broken foot. He was like some like frat looking bro, and he like looked at me, looked at the plastic bag on my foot. I was in the VIP section, and then looked back up at me and looked away with like absolute disgust. And I'm telling you, this man was a 3. And honey, I'm a 10. But the fact that a 3 can still dysregulate a woman who's a 10 is the reason why women need to ride for each other. I do take it to the point where like, I'll finger a vagina, I'll eat out a pussy on the right day in the right container if my marriage is in that space. But I don't think it's necessary. But I do think there are forms of women coming together in intimate dynamics from the full spectrum of like no sex to sex and everything in between that I think can actually help us heal our relationship with the masculine. Queerness not required. Just happens to be a part of my dynamic sometimes.
Well, I think the thing about like a heterosexual relationship, which is the only relationships I've ever been in, okay? I think what happens is that there becomes all this pressure to quote unquote be best friends. And there is this cultural narrative of like, your partner's your best friend, your partner's your best friend. It's like, I don't agree. Your partner is your partner. A best friend is a completely different relationship. Your partner is actually a mirror for you and someone you have to live with. And there is going to be like, it's like your partner is who you're healing your familial wound with because you have created a family with that partner. Whether or not you have children, that like marriage is part like regardless if it's heterosexual or not, when you get married or when you like commit to that dynamic of like romantic love, that is around family. The kids doesn't matter. It's like you become a family, the two of you. So that is around healing a different wound. And you are going to be poking and triggering each other in a different way. Like, I can't expect my male partner to be my best friend and to always have my best interests at heart and to never get jealous and to never because the element of sexuality is actually it's such an unstable molecule that's so misunderstood. We can't understand our sexuality. Like, some people want a toe up their butt. That's totally fine. And we don't have to question, well, why do you want to toe up your butt? What's going on? No, you just like, I want to toe up my butt. That's where sexuality isn't meant to be understood. It's never meant to be understood. It's something beyond comprehension. It's not rational. And who's the fuck is analyzing sex? It is not rational to be like, oh, you pee out of that? Let me put it in my mouth. I'd love to put in that thing you just peed out of. Let's put it in my mouth for a little bit. No, that's not rational. That's the least rational thing I've ever heard. But that is what romantic partnership is. It is irrational family healing. Okay, a best friend is a different role. A best friend for me personally is someone who loves you unconditionally, is committed to a life for me. Look, is for me, committed to a lifetime of compersion, of saying, I value what is best for you is best for us, is best for me. And in pulling back all the complexity of romantic partnerships and familial stuff, it's where you heal in a different way, and you just don't have to censor. You don't have to play games. You don't have to wonder, should I text them back? Should I not text them back? What does this mean? Da, 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 da. It's like an opportunity for directness. It's an opportunity for acceptance. How do I ask for help? Like, this to me is what best friend is. And as a best friend of someone, as an art wife of Sarah, if Sarah wanted to work with another person, that would not behoove me. That it's not best friend vibes to be like, actually, no, I don't. No. Every time Sarah, like, I'm like, oh, Sarah, we could do this thing, and she's like, oh, there's this other opportunity. I have her. I will always think, okay, what is best for Sarah? And I'm like, okay, I actually think screw the thing that we would do. You should do that thing because that's close in your area, and you really need to network with those people, and that'll give you opportunities there. I want you to be performing there. Do that thing instead. Even though, of course, selfishly, I could be like, nah, you said you would perform with me, so why aren't you performing with me? That's not what's best for you. And I think that is the exploration of platonic love. Let's use the word platonic, even though Plato, Socrates, all of the Greek philosophers, problematic. They also had some wisdom. And the platonic love is something that's beyond ownership and attachment. I don't own you. You don't own me. And that's, in a marriage, there is this like confusion of ownership.
And I have experienced that in female friendship. Like,
Yeah.
in the same ways that my wives, who I've called in a more like full expression of myself, in the same way that those relationships have really healed me and continue to heal me daily. I've also had friendships that have really hurt me and really confused me. And the time at which I would in the past stay in a dynamic that was unhealthy and not good for me was extensive. And I think maybe let's just touch on, I feel like we've talked about our feelings about like the way that female friendships can heal us and are powerful and dynamic and important for the ways that we are divesting from systems of oppression and creating new communities of care, to use the lingo. How have female friendships
Annihilated me, destroyed
annihilated you?
me,
Yeah.
broken me.
Yeah.
So fucking many, my dude. So many. I have been destroyed, like destroyed. So fucking hurt. And I think that that is fucking real. And when I'm going to analyze it, it comes from like me having an expectation of someone to fully, it's like how I define that best friend. My expectations are so fucking high, and I am expecting so much from humans. I get really disappointed, and I think I think it's like I will own the fact that like I potentially don't have a long enough vetting process. It's like I feel a connection. It's like I've slept with a lot of people, or I don't know, maybe not a lot for Gen Z dynamics, but like I slept for a lot for a millennial. Thank you very much. An elder millennial.
You fuck.
I fuck. Yeah, I fuck. But like the reason why I bring that up is I'm quick to fuck. Okay. I'm like, oh, cool. Let's fuck. I don't like have this like whole thing where I'm like, well, you need to go on like 6 dates and blah, 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 blah. No, not for me. I'm just like, if I want to fuck you, I'm going to fuck you. And so that has translated into friendships. I feel a connection. I like immediately trust. I don't like wait for people to prove to me that I should trust them. I give them all my trust and all my heart until they prove to me that that was a mistake. And that is something I've done over and over and over and over and over again, like countless of times, is loving too quick, loving too hard, revealing too much, trusting completely. And then later discovering like, Oh, right. Okay. Another thing that I think happens within friendship with me is that um I ask a lot of personal questions. I get really deep. I have a lot of insight, and I like self-reflecting. I like challenging. I care about people's spiritual growth on a deep level. So when people start to feel challenged by me, like if I've said this to you before, I'm not one of those friends that's going to just blindly support you. If you're doing something out of pocket, I mean, you've been friends with me for a long time. I challenge you. I'll hear you, I'll validate you, but if I'm like, I don't think your perspective is actually serving your best interest because you're like in your ego or you're da 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 or you're not seeing what I'm seeing. Oh my God, I remember when you got your sty? She got a sty in Scotland and she had put on mascara and then she got a sty. And like, I kind of had this download. I was like, I really think the sty is around Sarah's relationship to beauty. And like, we really need to examine her relationship to beauty. And beauty is not her only value. And I think she has so much more to offer. And I really love to untangle that, you know? So I had this like download around Sarah and her relationship to beauty that I wanted to kind of talk about. So like, I asked her, I was like, well, she was like, "Yeah, I think it's the mascara." And I was like, "Yeah, okay. So like, why did you put on the mascara?" I was like kind of like trying to lead the witness or whatever. She was like, "Why the fuck do you put on mascara? Why does anyone put on mascara?" You know? And I was like, "Okay, this is a sensitive topic. I think we're on to something here." You know, and the easier thing for me to do would just shut up and just let her think it's about the mascara. That would have been the easier choice. I could have just been like, yeah, you just had skunky mascara. But I was like, no, I'm actually going to push this person despite the fact that I'm irritating them and say, I think it's deeper. I think the why you put on the mascara is important. And Sarah also gives space for that. You're open for that. The friends I'm closest to let me challenge them, even when they don't want to be challenged, because that's what's best. I mean, I'm not trying to be like, I know what's best for other people, but I do think that like the value of being friends with me is that I have an open channel to self-reflect for me and for you. And to like not be interested in that is going to create a wall between us because I'm like, oh, you're not interested in like your personal growth. Okay, because this is what I do to myself. I'm not like just doing it to you. I'm doing it to myself. So I think what's happened for me with a lot of friendships is they get disinterested in me challenging them and then they fucking reject me. And then also there becomes a jealousy that also can happen because they think that they have a perception that I haven't worked really fucking hard. And they're like, oh, well, you know, they think everything is like coming easy or something. And then there's this like jealousy because they're assuming everything is easy. And I'm like, I am not talented. I just worked hard. I don't have an easy family life. I fucking worked at it. I don't just like, I'm not just chill. I meditate for like 70 hours a day. I meditate 26 hours a day. I'm not just fucking chill. You know what I mean? So I think a lot of people have really turned on me that I like thought I was going to like be friends with forever. Deeply turned on me. What about you?
Well, speaking of deep, like you're deep, and I relate to this depth, and you are in a pursuit of self-realization. And then beyond that, this is the vetting point, the actualization. Because we can realize, oh, aha moments, downloads, connections. That must be because of my trauma all day long. But if you're a bitch who actualizes, it's like you're in the big leagues. And if other people aren't playing in the big leagues, if I was to really just strip it down, in addition to it being painful, it's boring. And it's like a real fucking clit block to the deeper G spot orgasm of our lives, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because of my trauma around deep self-loathing, deep self-hate, deep self-rejection, deep self-denial, I really like let myself be the sidekick in a lot of my early female friendships. Always cast as the understudy in dance things to my friends who were quote unquote more talented or more gifted or had the more desirable ballerina body for a Christian Southern 2005 paradigm. And so because I think I was the sidekick also to my mother, and I was like her lady in waiting, and she was sick for so much of my childhood, I think my really deep original imprint is to like be of service, be the service dog, be the runt, be the sidekick, be the second in command, and be submissive essentially, which I do enjoy. But what I have realized in my healing is that I'm actually like way more dominant and robust, and I have ideas and thoughts and perspectives to offer that are original and unique. And I fundamentally don't let people anymore tell me who I am or what it is that I'm experiencing or what it is that I've lived through or am living through. But that is something I used to let people do. I used to let people just say the most awful things to me about myself. And then instead of challenging it, I would just absorb it like a sponge. And it did the thing we were talking about at the beginning of this episode, where I would just become a smaller and smaller version of myself until I didn't even know who I was.
Yeah.
So I think my relationship to pain in female friendship is shriveling, is being submissive, is like catering to a more dominant energy. And I think there was like a friend breakup in particular in my 20s that really just was the nail in the coffin for me around my susceptibility to controlling people. And frankly, to people who are like operating from a more narcissistic POV, which I've said this many times on the Gnarly Girls podcast, my experience of narcissism is a lack of not just self-awareness, but like source self-awareness, where like
Yeah.
you recognize that you are a sovereign being and you are a cosmic being, and everyone you're in relationship with is also a sovereign and a cosmic being. And just because you think that someone else should be living their lives a certain way or doing things a certain way, instead of having that just genuine compersion for their process, there's this like judgment, and there's like, well, I think them, well, which is different than offering feedback. Like I truly have experienced people being like, I don't like this decision you're making around your life and your body, and because you're not doing that, I think that you're problematic, and now I'm just going to be better than you and tell you all the ways that you're wrong and bad and evil and awful. And usually those people have been actually incredibly insecure and in a lot of pain, and I'm pretty fucking sure they felt the absence of my presence in their lives. Um, Something I will also say is I have been a girl who's always had many friends. So the friends that have come and gone, unless it's a dynamic like we have, I'm kind of like water off a duck's back. Like,
That's some January Capricorn shit. Me devastated. I wish. Man. Like I eventually will get there, but it rocks me.
that's my point. That's my presence in your life. Because I've also seen people like use you in ways, like in the same way you saw that with me when we first hung out. I've seen people treat you or say certain things to you, especially people who are comfortable around you, and just been like, who the fuck are you
Yeah.
to fucking talk to Tony like that? I don't like this.
Yeah, and I think it's an interesting thing is like my whole thing in a friendship is I want people to feel really comfortable. I want them to feel unconditionally loved. I don't want them to self-censor. I want them to be free to be who they are. And a lot of times what ends up happening is that they are very rude. Because like that is kind of a bit of their core imprint is rudeness. And because I'm not like making them feel on edge as if they have to self-protect, I do witness a lot of very rude behavior. Like I witness a lot of people's shadows because I do put out this like unconditional love vibe. And it's funny, like my ex-boyfriend who I had for like a really, really long time, who's still a friend. Like I think he and I will be friends for life because there was just so much time spent. But I think I fucked him up deeply in terms of his expectation of women in his life because he just was like, wait, you're not just gonna accept like my entire shadow being? Like, what is happening? And he under like there was this agreement, that, or like he kind of knew that no matter how much he come out of his face, I was going to have compassion and empathy, and I was going to still provide. I wasn't going to take my love away. Like there wasn't, and I think that that's the thing that's hard, is like, where is the edge of like being abused and being there for someone, and I think that's something that I've really struggled with, is I've let myself be abused a lot because I've opened the doors to many shadows. I'm like, okay, what's your shadow? Let's do it. And I have been abused by everyone I've ever been close to, probably a little bit. And it's really up to them about how they deal with it. And for those that are closest to me, like, will reorient or recognize, or I will say, like, oh, this is abusive. And then they'll be like, oh, you're right, And it's my ability to call it out that is where the genuine and intimacy comes, because some people don't even want to fucking hear it. So then I don't really say it. And then like, that's where like the codependent like was a real problem for me. But for those that are like willing to hear, then that is where the real closeness comes. And I think that, we've probably been jammering and yammering about this for some time, so we should kind of wrap it up. But I think our biggest objective when it comes to friendship, right, is feeling like you can be genuinely honest and finding the choreography between acceptance and not allowing yourself to be used and abused. Because I have let myself be very, very used.
And it's so women, I think, tend to be more codependent than men. And I think when codependent women come together and decide to create a new paradigm of relationship, and they're both like aware of the codependency, but then aware of like this cosmic desire that I think the codependency sprung from, which it's like an inversion of the cosmic desire to like really show up and support and be in symbiosis. And like, I think patriarchy is the thing that made that get out of balance. So of course, here we are as women again, just healing ourselves. It's so exciting. But it makes me realize and want to make a final point around, I think it's really important for functional female friendships. I mean, at least if you're going to be friends with either of us or women like us, is to divest from systems of oppression actively in all ways every day, but also then not be like a cop about it. Because all cops are bad. ACAB also applies to people who act like cops. And like, I think something that really is a shared root for us as well, and a shared root of my deepest, closest female friendships, is that there is this pursuit of anarchy and sovereignty and like rejection of the man inside of each of us and the larger man, so that the healthy masculine within all of us can rise, because it is important. So yeah, I do think that's important. I have experienced friendships where people are not doing, maybe they're doing like the self work, but then they're not divesting from the larger system. So then it's like, maybe they're doing like the shadow spiritual work, but they're not understanding the ways that they're still benefiting from and upholding patriarchy, white women specifically. And then I think from that place, that's where like projections happen onto women, where women will be like, I mean, I've certainly had this happen to me, where I'm not feminine enough. I'm too gnarly. I'm gross. I'm saying fuck too much. I'm talking about sex too much. I'm talking about shit too much. I'm too much in the blood. I'm too much in the dirt. I'm too much in the gnarly, which is, I think, a deep also shared connection that we have, and connection with the people listening, which is obviously, if you're listening to Gnarly Girls, you're interested in the gnarly. And so in addition to having this compersion for our friends around their relationships and their success and what it is that they are doing on their own unique sovereign journey, I think there's also this larger holding and celebration of especially women who are going against the grain and quite literally embodying faces of the divine feminine that have been oppressed for centuries and millennia. And if you're in a relationship with another woman who doesn't fuck with that and doesn't get that, she's going to make you wrong, because you're threatening her sense of femininity connected to the patriarchy that she's still benefiting from. And I do think this is primarily happening with white women, because I think white supremacy and like the sanitization of the feminine, the whitewashing of it is like the larger thing that's actually maybe even happening more than patriarchy in that. And so I just went macro with that, but I do think that healthy female friendships divested from systems of oppression are symbolic of the culture and the society that we need to build, because like we are the garden and the root system. So the way that we're exchanging energy between each other, thoughts about each other, information between each other, it's why the church coined gossip as gossip and made women think it was a bad thing to talk about what it is that's happening and how they're feeling. Because if women are in shame and they're in guilt, then they're going to keep their fucking mouths shut and their lips Botoxed and their faces wrinkle free, which talk about boring. Give me a wrinkle or give me nothing.
Yeah, I mean, I think gossip is about also the fear that you don't want to share information about men, right? And you don't want to share information that might be harmful to men. So that's another reason why it's demonized. And I think
You might get harmed.
yeah, and I think I appreciate you bringing up the concept of policing, because there is a policing that women do of each other. They police each other's actions, they police each other's thoughts, they police each other in the sense that if you are free and I feel contained, rather than freeing myself, it almost feels better to contain you. And I think that is how women preserve patriarchy, is because freeing of themselves feels terrifying. So I will put others in cages, my daughter in a cage, my friends in a cage, my mother in a cage. Um, and I think that the policing of the self then comes out in how you police others and how you police the women in your life. And I also think there is this like scarcity model, right? Which again, we know is rooted in capitalism. But when you believe in scarcity, then your beauty will threaten me. Your success will threaten me. Your fan base will threaten me. Your art will threaten me because you're taking away from me, because I'm living in this scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. Your beauty is fantastic. It's your beauty. It's nothing to do with me. Your success is fantastic. That's your success. Your art is everything. So I think that I am not suggesting that it's easy to get out of the comparing mentality, because I compare myself to people all the time. I understand the impulse. It happens. But it's like, oh, I notice I'm comparing myself. How do I take a step back? How do I shake it off? How do I recognize that my instinct to compare is a program? It's not necessity. It's a program. It's deeply programmed for me to compare myself to others, therefore compete with others, therefore use other people to either feel better than them or worse than them. So either I'm using that person so I can have self-esteem, or I'm using that person to stab myself in the heart with, to make me feel bad about me, which is dehumanizing. That is why having a scarcity mindset is ultimately dehumanizing, because it means we use each other to either feel better than or feel worse than, versus an abundance mindset. You're not going to be in that paradigm. You're going to be seeing people as their own, the word you love, sovereign, autonomous being, right? And then their beauty is not a threat. And I think, or their success is not a threat. And I think that is something that people really struggle with, because it is so deeply programmed. And that is why you also have to divest from systems. You can't just like expect to be the most amazing friend and still be like entwined with the systems of capitalism and patriarchy and scarcity. It's just not gonna work. It's not embodied. You're actually embodying your own oppression, and therefore you will oppress others.
I mean, well, that's a damn fucking solid, good ass, truthful bomb note. No bombs. Just like a truth bouquet to land on. No bombs, only bouquets. Thank you.
Well, I'm glad we did this 4 times.
Oh my God. It's changed me. Your friendship has changed me. Recording this multiple times has changed me. I think it's interesting that this was the one where we started talking about our friendship. And like the way that we tried to talk about other people, other things, this analysis before we talked about us was the missing piece.
Totally. I love you.
Love you.
Bye, friends.